Welcome back. We have not done one of these Tuesday live streams in a while. Hope y'all are doing all right. So we are back with our Tuesday live stream, lunchtime chat. I don't know if I'll be able to do this every week, but we'll do it when we can. And I am going to talk to you all about today about my near-death experience. A while ago, I did a stream where I was talking about ghost stories and things like that, and I told you that I would talk to you at some point down the road about my near-death experience and my true story of survival. And I am on the grounds of a hospital where a couple years ago all this went down. So I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but I want to give people a chance to log in here. If nobody joins us, then we'll just go ahead and stream it anyways, and people can watch it on the recap. So I'm going to flip the camera actually, because I think you guys will like the views here while we're walking around. I think you'll enjoy that more than staring at my pretty face. Hang on one second. All right. Hey Celine, good to see you. Thank you so much. So let me see. I'm going to kind of take us on a little tour here. This is, hey Judy May, it's good to see you too. So this is a little meditation garden on the grounds of the hospital where I nearly died a few years ago. Hey Johnny, it's good to see you. Oh, good. All right, Sarge is a good guy. I appreciate that. Hey Brokeneck. So yeah, I guess we got a few people here. We'll go ahead and get started. So a few years ago, look at this beautiful oak, by the way. One of the beautiful things about the South. Look at this oak with that Spanish moss. I mean, it is just gorgeous. Look at that thing. So a few years ago, I had a medical incident. Let me see. I'll stop the camera shake. You know what? We'll just find I see a nice bench up here. I'm going to go ahead and take you to there, and then we'll stop the camera shake. So just bear with me a second. Is this not a beautiful meditation garden, y'all? I hope everybody's having a good day. Hope everybody's having a good lunch. Look at this. It's a darn fine tree. Yeah, so here's another beautiful oak. Look at this thing. They're so majestic. They're just absolutely gorgeous. So this hospital here that you can see in the background was founded, I believe, I should have looked up the history before I started my stream. It was founded in the 1800s by a group of nuns. So keep that in mind, because that's going to come in later on in the story. But a few years ago, for months, I was having some abdominal issues, and we're going to take one of these benches over here. So I was having that looks like a good one over there. I'll take that one right there. I was having some abdominal issues, and it felt like cramping. Good morning. Felt like cramping. The only way I can describe it is if you've ever had, what are they called? Kidney stones. If you ever had kidney stones, it would feel like that. And at the time, oh yeah, take a load off here. This is nice. Look at this oak in front of us. It's just so beautiful here. So at the time, I thought it was kidney stones, because that's what it felt like. I'm gonna flip the camera here again. And I thought it was work stress. Hey Laura, didn't really know exactly what was going on. And a lot of times, I'd get up. I felt it a lot of times in the morning, and I would get up and I would go into work, and I would eat a yogurt, and that would kind of like how I pronounce that, and that would kind of settle my stomach, and I was okay for the rest of the day. And this went on for months. I just figured it was work stress. So then this was December of, I think it was 2018 off the top of my head, and it was a Friday, and I woke up and it was hurting a lot worse than normal. And again, I thought it was just like a kidney stone or whatever. So I went out and I talked to my wife, and I said, I think I'm going to call out sick today. I just don't feel good. I think it's a kidney stone. I think I'm going to just kind of crawl back into bed, and hopefully it passes. So I crawled back into bed, and I just remember being in pain that entire day. Ibuprofen, Tylenol, none of that. It didn't even touch it. Like, there's a threshold of pain that those things will not help at all. It was like you're not taking anything at all. I wish that I had stuff stronger, but in a way it's good that I didn't, because it might have maybe masked what was going on, and not let me know that there was a bigger problem. So she got home from work later on that night, she's like, have you gotten out of bed? And I'm like, I really haven't. I just don't feel good. So I think I got up for a couple minutes that night. This was a Friday night. This was beginning of December. And I got up for a few minutes. I think I tried to eat something and I was like, I don't feel good. I'm gonna try to go back to bed. So I stayed in bed most of the next day, Saturday, and like the pain was just not subsiding. And again, at this point, I'm still thinking it's a kidney stone. So around 2 or 3 o'clock on the Saturday, maybe it was 4, it was in the afternoon, I started to feel a little bit better. So I got up and I remember wrapping some presents because it was Christmas time and watching a Christmas movie. It was probably Elf because that's usually the first one we watch of the season. And I felt okay for a little while. I was able to eat something and then it started to hurt again. And so I said, I think I'm gonna go lay back down again. So at this point I'd been, sleeping almost 2 full days, barely getting out of bed. And still at this point thinking it's a kidney stone. So I tried to lay back in bed and all of a sudden I get this like stabbing pain. Sorry. There's this ant that is like super curious about what I'm doing here. I don't think it's a fire ant though, so we're just gonna let him pass on by. So I get this like stabbing pain in my lower abdomen, and now it's moved to my right side, like where your liver is. And it's the most excruciating pain that I've ever had in my life. Now, mind you, I have a very high threshold for pain. I've had 2nd-degree burns all over my back. I've broken bones through martial arts and different things like that. And this was, up until that point in my life, I thought a 10 was those 2nd-degree burns on my back. I thought that you couldn't possibly endure pain worse than that without passing out. This dwarfed that. Like, this was the kind of blinding pain that I can only say is, I've never wanted to die or anything like that, but I can tell you that the thoughts that went through my head is, if this doesn't stop, I don't think I can live, right? So at this point I knew something was seriously wrong. And I'm screaming, right? Like, screaming, and my wife comes running in and she's like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I call an ambulance? And I said, no. I said, that's going to take a long time. Let's, I think I can get in the car and let's drive. Because we didn't live too far from here at the time. So we get in the car and we get there and I get into the hospital and they say, what's going on? And I said, I think I'm having a kidney stone, but it's worse than any kidney stone I've ever had. And they say, can you describe what's going on? And I'm describing the pain. And of course I'm like holding over to the right side where your liver is, right? And they're like just looking at me like that's not a kidney stone. So now in retrospect, they were probably thinking it was appendix. It wasn't an appendix. So I remember they wheeled me back for like x-rays and that kind of stuff. And then I'm waiting. Yeah, me too, Celine. And I'm waiting, and then eventually they say they had somebody come out and talk to us, and they said, you need surgery. You've got diverticulitis, and it's ruptured. So if you don't know what that is, diverticulitis is, and I didn't know I had diverticulitis up to this point. Like I said, this had been going on for months, and I just thought it was work stress. So if you ever get it, what the first sign is your lower left-hand side, like your lower intestines, almost all the way down to your groin area, and it'll feel like a crampy kind of thing. So they said, you're going to need surgery. So I said, oh, okay, when are we scheduling this? And they're like, no, you don't understand. We just it's 2 a.m. They said, we called in an emergency surgeon, you're going in. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so now it's pretty late. I want to say, I'm sorry, the surgery was like at 2 a.m. This was still probably maybe 1 or 1:30. Excuse me, my allergies. So so I called my dad. I woke him up and I said, Dad, I'm going in for emergency surgery. Just wanted to let you know. My wife will let you know in the morning, what's going on. And I called my sister and let her know, woke her up. And so the surgeon gets there and he talks to us for a few minutes, and of course they're having you sign all these forms and stuff that basically if you die you're not going to sue them, right? And so So he's explaining it to me. He said, if you hadn't come in tonight, you'd be dead. And, you know, there is a chance even at this point, like the surgery could go bad. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong. But what they have to do, if it ruptures like that, there's a pretty good chance they have to remove a part of your lower intestines. So I remember them, so they wheeled me back, and I remember being wheeled back into this room that was pretty far into the hospital. I guess this was the operating room, and it was super bright in there. I remember it's around Christmas time, so this part's kind of funny. I remember the people there, the nurses and whatnot, were prepping for surgery, so they're washing their hands and putting their gowns on and stuff, and they're singing Christmas carols. And I remember thinking, oh, that's good. I want them to be in a good mood. I want that good chi rolling through here as they're working on me. And they asked, do I have any kids? Now, if you're going in for emergency surgery and they ask you that question, you know, they want to know, like, how important is it that you make it through this, right? So I said, yes, I have a stepdaughter, right? So that's true. I have a stepdaughter. So they're wheeling me back, and the last thing I remembered before the anesthesia and everything was I really wasn't afraid of dying. At that point, I was in for, hey, thanks for checking in, OCD check. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of, if I did die, what was going to happen for my wife. That was it. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm a spiritual person. You guys know I've talked about this before on my channel, and I think that one of the things that helps to not be afraid of dying is live a good life. Be the kind of person, you know, sometimes with my clients, I'll say, you know, if they're trying to change things about themselves that they don't like, I'll say, I want you to think about somebody from fiction that you admire, or it can be a real life person too, that doesn't matter. Think about somebody you admire, and what are the traits about that person that you really like, and then strive to be like that. And so for me, there's several fictional characters that I like. The Silver Scorpion's good to see you. So one is growing up a Star Wars fan, and Celine is a Star Wars fan too. She'll appreciate this. Obi-Wan Kenobi is somebody who I really admire, because he was courageous and empathetic, and always strived to do what was right and had wisdom. There are other characters too, but that's one that comes to mind, right? So so think about the person that you want to be and strive to be like that person, right? So I was never afraid, and I'm still not afraid of dying. My only fear was, you know, what would happen for my wife. I didn't want her to go through that. And being a therapist and watching what happens for people when they lose a loved one, I didn't want her to experience that. So there's your little survival lesson in there. I'm going to get to the near-death stuff soon. But live the life that, if your time comes, you have no regrets. You're not afraid to see what's on the other side of that door. So the next thing that happened was, so I go into the anesthesia, and the next thing that happened is I remember coming out of it in my room, my hospital room. So I was lucky there was a room available. I got to get right in, and I had a single, which was even better. Like, that's awesome. You're lucky if that happens. And my wife was there, and a nurse was there, or a medical assistant. I don't know if she was a nurse or a medical assistant. And I was really when I come out of anesthesia, because I've had it a few times, I get like really weird and foggy. A couple years ago, I had a different surgery that was not life-threatening. And when I came out of it, the nurse, the first thing I said to the nurse was, "Did I win?" And she was like, "What?" And I said, "Did I win?" Because at that time I was training in martial arts, and I thought that I had got knocked out in a fight. Well, this time, she was asking, the nurse was asking different questions, and one of the questions she asked was, do I drink? And I tried to answer, and so my wife said, "Did I win?" Right? So my wife says, "He drinks socially," which is true. I have drinks if we're with friends and stuff like that. I don't really drink that much anymore. It's not as fun as it was for me in the 20s. So I drink socially once in a while, like a little bourbon or beer or whatever. And so my wife said he drinks socially, and then somehow in that brain fog of the anesthesia, I thought she was asking for my social security number. So I start giving out numbers, but the numbers won't go together in my head. Like, I'm just like randomly spitting out numbers and I can't get them to work right. I can't get my words to come out right. And so they're cracking up, and I remember that. And the nurse says, "What is he trying to tell us?" And my wife says, "I think he's trying to give you his name, rank, and serial number." So, yeah, so I started to, I think I dozed off again for a while. And then when I came to, now it was like probably 6 in the morning or so. My wife had obviously been in the hospital all night long waiting to find out what was going on. So I said, "I really appreciate that you were here when I woke up. That means a lot. And I want you to go home and get some rest. Clearly I'm safe now. I'm out of the woods. Go home and get some rest. You can come back and see me later on." Oh, it's hilarious watching people come out of anesthesia. So the next 5 days, right? So they removed part of my intestines and the surgery went awesome. My surgeon was phenomenal. And I'm thankful that I got a little bit more time here on the earth to do a little bit, I mean, the way I look at it as a person of faith is, hey, MBTV, so good to see you, was that I'm glad that I got a little bit more time here to do whatever it is that I'm here for, right? So if God wants me to continue to be a therapist and help people, then I'm going to do that to the best of my ability, and I'm thankful for that. If God wants me to be a good husband for my wife, then I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be the best husband that I can. If God wants me to teach them survival skills, then that's what I'm going to do, right? So the next 5 days was spent in the hospital in recovery, and again, they had to slice open my abdomen. Now, for those of you who do fitness stuff, you guys know that's where all your core muscles are, right? So like basically my core muscles were cut open. And I'm not trying to get too graphic here, but basically I have a scar. Let me see, I'll move the camera a little bit. I have a scar that goes from here down to here, okay? And it's a pretty funky looking scar now. So all those muscles were cut open. And so sitting up and sitting back was the most excruciating pain. And at this point now, I've got the good stuff. Like they've got me on the Demerol with the you hit the pump, and it's still excruciating pain. Like I remember, like even with all those meds, like it was the worst pain I could possibly imagine. Yeah, so cesarean birth would probably be the exact same kind of muscle cutting, exactly. Now, the surgeon told me later on, "Hey, Urban Grandpa, it's good to see you." Surgeon told me later on that what happened to me was that the fluids from my intestines were seeping out into my body. And that pain that I felt on the right side was that they had actually moved their way over to the liver and the diaphragm, which controls your breathing. And so that started spasming in reaction to the toxic substance. And that was the pain that I was feeling. And they said that the pain of this, people who've gone through natural childbirth and diverticulitis when they've had the rupture, that they say the diverticulitis with the rupture is far worse than natural childbirth. I'm not saying that, the surgeon said that, okay? So don't yell at me. All right, so the next 5 days, I remember I had to relearn how to walk. I know that sounds really funny, but that's the only way I can describe it, is like I had to relearn how to walk. I guess because my core muscles were cut open, that like I had to use other stabilization muscles to walk, because the muscles that would have normally helped me with that were destroyed. So I had to relearn how to walk, and that was one of the conditions that I had to do to get out of the hospital. So of course I want to get out of the hospital as quick as I can. I want to get home. So I immediately, even though I was in a tremendous amount of pain, I started doing laps around the nurse's station and things like that as soon as I was able to. Now here comes the near-death experience part. So if you hear those bells in the background, guys, I'm going to show you this real quick. Look at those beautiful chimes right in the center of the screen hanging from the oak tree. Isn't that pretty? Hey, Orlando Jess, it's good to see you. So here comes the near-death experience part. So it was day 3, I think, to the best of my remembering. Now remember, I was on some heavy-duty pain medications at this point. So if you're not a believer, if you're not a person of faith, hey, Gray Note, it's good to see you. There is a scientific explanation, and I'm not going to push my faith on anybody. That's for you to decide. I'm just going to tell my testimony here. You could say that it was just the delirium from the medications. Maybe that's true. But what I saw was I was in my room, laying on the bed, and people would, when you're in the hospital for something like this in your recovery, people will come in and out, checking on your, because I was hooked up to all kinds of machines, fluids, pain medication, I had tubes coming out of me in places where men don't want to have tubes coming out of them. I had a drainage tube coming out of my intestines. Not trying to get graphic, just letting you know, like I was hooked up to a lot of stuff, IVs, everything. And so the nurses and the medical assistants and whatnot, they come in frequently. They check the stuff. They check your oxygen levels. I had one of those, Gray Note knows what I'm talking about, that checks your oxygen levels. I had an oxygen tube going through my nose. And one day, I think it was day 3, so I look over to I didn't look over. To the corner of my eye, right? So the peripheral vision. So like right here, okay? There's a woman, and she was pulse oximetry. Thank you. There's a woman. She was a little bit heavy set, and she was wearing very, very plain clothes, smock, like not like how a nurse would dress. And I looked over, and she was gone. She disappeared, and I got the chills. And every time I talk about it and think about it, I got the chills. But remember what I said in the beginning of this. This hospital behind me was founded by nurses in the 1800s. I think that some of the old supervisors are still hanging around, checking on what's going on and supervising what's happening in that hospital. And all I can tell you is that, yes, it was my peripheral vision, right? Yes, it was my peripheral vision. Yes, I was on a ton of medications, but she was as real for that brief glimpse as anyone else who walked in the room and was checking my charts. And I didn't get a bad vibe or anything like that. When I turned, it just felt like whoever was there just didn't want to be seen. And that's the best I can describe it. On my checkout day, I don't think it was a ghost. I think it was like a guardian or an angel or however you want to conceptualize that. I think it was one of the founders of the hospital, to be honest with you. On my checkout day, so they sent a minister. It's because this is a faith-based hospital. They sent a minister, just kind of walking around, talking to people and stuff. And I told him my testimony. I told him what I saw, and he just kind of smiled and nodded. So I got the impression that I'm not the only person who's seen stuff there. It was a pretty cool experience. It was, otherworldly being. That's how it felt for me. It was a pretty cool experience. Now, I've had other experiences too. That I've talked about on that video, the Ghost Stories one that I did. It did not feel like a bad vibe at all. No, I didn't get that at all. But if you like this kind of stuff, check out the Ghost Stories stream that I did. In fact, I'll try to go back in later on tonight, and I'll link that as like an end card or whatever, if you can't find it. I have some different experiences from when I worked in a group home and some other stuff that I've seen. No, I wasn't afraid. In fact, throughout the whole process, the only fear that I think I remember having was just like more anxiety, more worried about my wife and that kind of thing. Well, there was one other thought about it that I wanted to share with y'all. Let's see if it comes back to me. Yeah, so this kind of goes back to, and it didn't feel evil or menacing or anything at all. So at one point during the hospital stay, I did have a little pity party, and I'm going to share this too because I think this is good, like survival mentality and also a little bit of mental health I'm going to throw in here too. So it was the experience of that extreme pain from having to sit up and lay back down, and I had a little pity party, and I was doing one of those why me, poor me, you know. And what got me through that was I immediately started to think about somewhere in this hospital behind me, there's a little kid with leukemia, and they didn't do anything to deserve that, right? Sometimes bad things just happen. And no matter what happened during that experience, I've had a good life. I really have had a good life. I had a good family growing up. I had a good neighborhood to grow up in. I've got a great wife. I've had a good job. I've helped a lot of people in my career. I've been doing my mental health work for over 23 years. To the best of my ability, I've worked with over 1,000 patients at this point. I've had a good, full life. So if I didn't make it out of there, I really can't complain. And meanwhile, some little kid in here who never did anything wrong, that never asked for any pain or anything like that, was struggling for their will, you know, to fight and to get home and to be with their family. So that snapped me out of it. A little bit of gratitude, a little bit of reflection when you're going through one of those things, and realizing your blessings. Exactly, Laura. Counting your blessings will go a long, long way when you're in a situation like you feel like, you know, why me? Why is this happening? And I just hope this helps you. I hope you all enjoyed this. I got to wrap it up and get back to work. But this is going to probably be one of my new streaming locations. I was been looking around, trying to find a nice location, a little bit of green space that was close enough to my work that I could get here on lunch break, and so we could start the lunchtime chats again. So I really appreciate you all tuning in and listening in on my little testimony there. I hope you found it a little bit entertaining. If you did, if you enjoyed this at all, please consider giving me a thumbs up. I usually don't ask people to share my videos, but if you feel like this will help somebody in some way, please feel free to share it. You don't have to. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Celine. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everybody, for tuned in. I do got to get back to work. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.